She's a content creator, a fighter, and a voice for women everywhere. Allison Jacobs joins me on Bloom Health Club to share her journey as a lipedema warrior, a little-known condition that makes losing weight nearly impossible. From battling lipedema to using social media to challenge body image stereotypes and spread joy, Allison is redefining what it means to own your health and your story.
From the Stream Center, welcome to Bloom Health Club, sponsored by Monticciolo Family and Sedation Dentistry.
I am your host, Gayle Guyardo, and today I'm thrilled to welcome back a longtime friend of the show, Allison Jacobs. Allison is a social media sensation who uses her platform to inspire and uplift messages about body positivity. And you've also been incredibly open about your own journey with lipedema, which is a condition that makes it nearly impossible to lose weight. So we're so excited to have Allison. And Allison, I wanted you to know that Nacha Castilla is behind the scenes directing the show today. She's going to be jumping in. But man, we're so glad you're here.
I'm so happy to be here. I always love seeing you.
And I just love growing alongside you with your story because it's really interesting. You and I met so many moons ago. It was around the pandemic time.
Yeah.
I was guest hosting our sister show, and you and I were talking, and you were doing a show, an NBC show, Dancing with Myself, that featured people dancing in individual boxes, kind of like we had to do. And that was kind of what you started doing during the pandemic, is just trying to spread joy during our darkest of days.
Yeah. Honestly, when I started dancing during the pandemic, it was, for me, I didn't put two and two together that anybody would have any interest watching me dance in my pajamas around my house. It still blows my mind that, you know, dance really does have this universal language and way to connect with so many people. It's really awesome.
And now, years later, and millions of clicks later, you know, Allison is still entertaining us all and spreading really important messages. And a lot of it has to do with body positivity, which you started to learn about at a very young age because you dance, you know, like one of these competitive dancers. It starts very young, and you started to experience issues even as a child.
Right. I learned the opposite of body positivity. I really learned to hate my body. I started dancing when I was about 2.5, and then I got serious about it around 9, 10 years old. And dance can be tough. You know, you're surrounded by a lot of other girls, and there's mirrors everywhere. And as a dancer, you're really taught to pick yourself apart almost because you want to see how you can perfect the choreography, and you're constantly trying to make it better. And it's really hard to love that body you're in when you're constantly comparing yourself to your peers.
And you even started noticing, and we'll you know, touch on this in just a moment, but even when you were younger, you started to realize that losing weight wasn't easy, not knowing that there was a condition brewing inside of you called lipedema, which I had never heard of until I met you. But that's really where your body image trouble started.
So, you know, I didn't know that I had lipedema until I started dancing online, and followers recognized that in the shape of my body. But what I've come to learn is that the onset is typically around puberty or a hormonal period of time, and then it progresses. So around the age of 13, I always felt like my thighs were bigger, you know, as far as in proportion to my torso. And no matter what I tried to do when I was attempting to diet in a very unhealthy way, no matter what I did, my thighs just never seemed to change. And then as I got older, you know, through my pregnancies and now entering into my, 40s, I really started to see some big differences, and it was just becoming painful and definitely progressing and affecting my mobility.
And while, Allison and I started a really fun on-air relationship together, or that transformed into a friendship away from work. A lot of what we were doing is fun TikTok dances, and I'm terrible at it. And she's really helped me progress over the years to become at least a little bit better. I have some. You've
got rhythm, Gayle.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of
rhythm.
But, so we started doing that on Bloom, which is our globally syndicated health and wellness show, and had a lot of fun with it. And I remember behind the scenes, one day Allison said to me, I've got this condition. People don't talk about it. I want to share my journey. I want to educate other women about what this is all about. And of course, we embrace the idea because, it falls in a category that we talk a lot about on our show, and that is studies on women are very, very scarce. I mean, most of the medicine that we receive is because of studies done on men, and we clearly know that does not translate. And that meeting medical professionals, and you brought world thought leaders to the table to educate our viewers. This is a very little studied condition that more women have than would ever realize. There's so many women out there walking around with lipedema, and some men too, but rarely does it impact men.
Yeah, no, it blows my mind as I was learning about this and really coming to realize that this wasn't just my body. Because how could I go 40 years of my life going to doctors, taking care of myself to the best of my ability, and no one ever told me, you have this condition. This was found in the 1940s is when they said this is, a condition, and it just didn't get talked about. It didn't get taught in medical school, and it affects their thinking about 1 in 9, and it could be more like 1 in 10 is what I've heard more recently, which is a lot of women.
A lot of women. So you made the brave decision, because what people don't realize is it doesn't make it just impossible to lose weight, from the doctors that have appeared on Bloom to talk about this, but it also becomes very painful and limiting. So you decided that you were going to start doing research, and you were going to travel outside of the country. You ended up staying here in the US of A to have this surgery. There were numerous ones, correct? And they were not easy.
Right. So I want to clarify, when I first found out about lipedema and I was researching it, I'd read about it being painful, but it's actually not always painful. And when I was diagnosed stage 2, type 2. And because I didn't have any pain, and I went back and had spoken to my own medical providers here, and they said, lipedema is not a thing. I really thought that it wasn't a thing, and I didn't have it. It wasn't until it progressed and it started to affect my ability to move, to get up off the ground, that I was really like, this actually might be something. And there are conservative measures if, surgery isn't an option, or it's just not something that you're ready to jump into. But for me, at the point that I was at, it was time. I was worried that I was going to end up in a wheelchair. And when I had the first surgery, which was my thighs, that goes, I think he does the front of your knees when you do your thighs, my doctor, he was saying the fibrosis around my knees, I would have 100% ended up having orthopedic surgery if I hadn't done something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that's the first that I've heard of this that you've ever shared with me. Nachi, you've been along for the journey, and you've heard Allison's inspiring stories. And, it really helps when high-profile people like Allison step forward and share their concerns.
Yeah, and I was going to ask, actually, because you have such a strong social media presence, and we all know, social media has its pros and cons. It could be a place where we can find community, or it can be a place where there's a lot of hatred that could be harbored and bullying. So how was it when you first, what was that initial reaction with your fans, with your followers, when you first shared your diagnosis and the whole process? Like, what would you say was most impactful to you when you first shared it?
I was met with truly, the majority of the feedback I was getting was so positive. And I feel like when I was thinking, and I was talking with my therapist. I always recommend therapy. I mean, we were bracing for a lot of hate, and I was met with so much support. Listen, I definitely get a lot of hate. I have trolls, I have haters. It's just a thing. But when it came to talking about lipedema, my decision to move forward with surgery, I really did feel so much love and support. And the fact that so many women were starting to realize, wait a second, because with lipedema, you notice it. The hallmark sign is really like these tree trunk legs. And I see that you've got some footage here, and you can see that. My knees, you just have such a hard time seeing that. And when you go your whole life and you're just thinking like, this is my body type. And then so many women can see themselves in my body. That was powerful.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask as well. You getting the word out and just talking about it on your social media platforms, coming on Bloom. And again, like I said, bringing world leaders of knowledge to talk about this. You really did open up a very important conversation.
Yeah, and I feel so grateful to have met you and come on the show, and the fact that you were so supportive and willing to talk about it, I really appreciate that so much. And I feel so honored that I've been given the opportunity to do that and hopefully help, some younger girls along the way, because so many of us start feeling the impacts of it around puberty, which is just such a awfully challenging time to begin with,
Yeah. And first of all, thank you for the kind words. And you always have a home with Bloom, and all of us here, we love you like family. And I really admire, despite whatever it is, it may not be lipedema, but you've had this incredible messaging of body positivity, which I think is so very, very important, especially on a general, because like I grew up, same way, always picking myself apart. You described the same way. Mm-hmm. And now I have 4 daughters, and there's social media, and there's just so much pressure. So what do you try to convey to all of your followers?
Yeah, I think when I started really leaning into social media and this platform, it was very much, body positivity and learning to love yourself. And that is important. But I think it's unrealistic that you're going to wake up every single day and look in the mirror and think, I love my body. Like, yeah, girl. That's just, I don't think it's realistic. So I have really started to talk about body neutrality, whether, I don't know if I use that term or not, but just learning to love not love, but to accept and feel gratitude for every phase of your body. Because whether you lose weight or gain weight, our bodies still change throughout our lives. That's just, we age, and who we were when we were 9 is different than in our 20s and our 40s and so on. So I think it's so important. I've really come to be not a fan of before and afters when I see those, because it almost implies that before wasn't good enough or worthy. And that's just, I think that's like something that you have to look at as a snapshot in time, you know? And if you can really, if you can't wake up and say, I love the way I look, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for my body and everything that it does for me every single day, despite what I've put it through.
Yeah, and you have shared that message with our Bloom viewers, which is, again, is our television audience. And I have found myself just in listening to you for all of these years. I mean, like when I'm riding bikes with my kids or doing fun things with them, I look at my body now, because I'm much older than you, and I look in the mirror now, I'm like, wait, why is that sagging? Or why is that heading south? Mm-hmm. But now I get to the point where I'm like, I don't care, man. Mm-hmm. I'm with my kids. I'm having fun. I'm with my husband. I'm active. So I think, to your point, at the end of the day, we just need to focus on what our bodies have done for us, can do for us, and cherish them, really. And that's the way that you build your strength and you build your confidence.
100%. I'm working on a TikTok right now that I want to post today. And it's really about, like, I think our greatest superpower is fully realizing that we we wield our power. Somebody can't make us feel a certain way, whether it's media or it's people or haters or whatever. We're in control of how we feel about ourselves. And owning that is so liberating, truly.
Now let's talk about where all of this incredible positivity has led you almost to becoming your own entrepreneur on social media, which is so many people aspire to do, but very few in the grand scheme of things get there. When you look at the scope of people who want to and people who actually succeed at this. So talk to me about being an influencer.
So whenever you say that or anybody refers to me as that, I just have such a hard time hearing that. I don't know. I don't feel like an influencer. I feel so grateful that I have the opportunity to reach people and that I've been able to, make an income off of it and turn it into a job. When I talk to my kids' friends, I would not recommend it to people as this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do. I've come to learn as much as you put your effort and your time and your energy into these platforms, they're really not yours. I mean, they can just I lost my Facebook page. Somebody hacked me.
Yeah, me too.
And it was, it was such a nightmare. So if you're putting all your eggs in that basket, that's scary. So yeah. I don't know. I say this, I don't want to seem like I'm ungrateful because I am so grateful. But I don't think I would encourage anybody to have that as their goal.
Yeah. I didn't have nearly as many followers as you did, but I lost my Facebook page. I lost my TikTok page. You're right. It can be taken from you and there's no getting it back. You don't even know who you're talking to or who owns these platforms.
You're not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
It's like screaming into a void. There's no one to talk to.
Yeah. It's really, and even with the power of this incredible, Nexstar Media Group and this whole network of television stations, they couldn't even put a dent in it to get that back. So, I had even people trying to help. And so, if you're putting, like you said, all your eggs in one basket, not so great. But what you can put your eggs in one basket is your incredible family who have been so supportive. I've so enjoyed getting to know your husband. He's such a good sport. Your sons. I mean, you really have a great family and they've rallied behind you through your journey and they really celebrate what you do.
They really do. And I just couldn't be more grateful to them. They honestly celebrate all of these little victories with me. And I'll see sometimes comments like, isn't this embarrassing? Or how are you going to disrespect your husband like that? And it just blows my mind that anybody would think that it is like that because it's not.
Yeah, well, people always have to say something, and that will be one of our viewer questions. But let's start with the first viewer question for Allison. It comes from Karen, and Karen wants to know, at what point did you realize that dancing on social media during the pandemic was making a big difference in people's lives?
Man, I just started receiving these DMs from people that were literally telling me that I helped save their life, or it was dancing. It wasn't even lipedema at this point. It was just, I think, that joy that people can see in dancing, in joyful movement, because really at the beginning I was talking more about your body and or I should say eating disorders. And I had a middle school teacher reach out to me and tell me about her student that I was helping. And that just was powerful.
That's incredible. All right, Dan wrote in, he wants to know, the lipedema surgery you went through seemed grueling. Is this something you would do again?
Yes, I would. I mean, I make that sound that it was grueling. It was not only physically grueling, it was very emotionally grueling, but it has been life-changing. I feel just walking with my husband, when you were asking how my weekend was, and I said, my husband and I, we grabbed some coffee and we were walking around downtown. I feel like I'm flying when I'm walking. It is just incredible.
That's great. That is great news. All right. This one has kind of been a theme that Nadja wanted to know about. You mentioned somebody, reaching out. Why would you humiliate your husband when it's nothing like that? The next question comes from Amy. She wants to know, while you're trying to spread positivity on social media, how do you combat the haters?
It's so interesting how things happen in life when they do. If this had kind of happened to me even 5 years earlier, I don't know that I would have been able to handle it. I thank my therapist, but he's called this whole experience really exposure therapy. And it's scary because you don't know how it's going to be received or what people are going to think or say. But I have learned truly through practice, it's like a muscle, that confidence. It's what people have to say. It doesn't affect me. They have no bearing on my everyday life. These strangers, these trolls on the internet, like they can say whatever they want, and how does that affect me? Truly.
And it shouldn't, because when you think about it, trolls and people like that, like I can't think of one cell in my entire body that would feel motivated to get behind a keyboard or text on my phone and say anything hateful to anyone. So if that's the kind of space that you're in, I've learned to realize, because I'm very thin-skinned, and I probably do need to sign up for some more therapy because it would probably be helpful. It's very easy to hurt my feelings. But having said that, I've learned over the years that those are the people that are in the really bad place in life. And that if I'm around spreading joy like you spread joy, then those people start to come to gravitate into your life. Like, I don't think it's an accident that our two worlds collided, that we just started chit-chatting and had a conversation that turned into years of content together. And
I have chills.
I
have chills. Like, it's been years.
And our husbands hanging out and coming over to my home and meeting out, and it's just been really a pleasure to get to know you, Allison, and to share your journey. And just even in the smallest of roles, it's a pleasure. So how can folks follow you?
You can find me on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, Facebook, Allison.Jacobs with 3 S's. And it has truly been a joy to have you in my life and get to know you as well.
Thank you so much, Allison. And listen, we want to thank our sponsor, Monticciolo Family and Sedation Dentistry, for believing in Bloom Health Club and giving us the capability to share these types of stories. And you can watch our streaming show, Bloom Health Club, on Apple TV, Fire TV, Roku, Samsung TV, WFLA.com, and YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I will see you next week on Bloom Health Club.